Somewhat forgotten. So David, who did the last application of it for the National Register, he would probably know as much as I do now. But basically, this is an example of a middle class, or upper middle class family who had a business and lived along one of the major roads of America, right here, which is a turnpike. It went from Philadelphia to Bethlehem in the Lehigh Valley. This is about halfway between Philadelphia and Bethlehem. So this might have been, like other buildings, and some of them have been knocked out recently, might have been for boarding overnight. We don't know it was a hotel, but maybe, okay? Probably for a short time. Also, we believe that there was a tavern here in colonial times, but where is it? We don't know. There's a slight chance that it might incorporate here, or they thought about on the left-hand side, the double doors. If you look at this building, there's a chance the double doors was not a real door lock. Why is that? Double doors usually indicated business. While the family was on the right-hand side, we have a Dutch door. And what you sense is the family lived in half of the building, high on the right-hand side, while the business was on the left-hand side. You can't claim that. But there's even the double hip board, or baseboard, that taverns often have. So there's clues, doors, the baseboards, also this area and what it would be used for. Was it used 1 year? Was it used 10 years as taverns and could? But this part of the house right here has not been lived in since 1920 when the Strassburgers bought it. Alright, when Ralph Beaver Strassburger bought it, he was a very wealthy man. He had Normandy Farms in Bluebell. Then probably one of the richest men in America at that time. So he had money to burn. He was going to burn some of it on here, but he never got to that. He did have the Brewing Society. He was hoping they would have this at headquarters. They did meet here one time, because we have a newspaper in the news herald showing, I think in 1938 or 36, somewhere around there. But there's no evidence that they actually made this as their headquarters. Strassburger himself, you could talk about for an hour or two. Basically, very complex. History is also complex. The building's complex. He was too. Very wealthy. A lot of racing horses. He was over in Normandy, France. Somehow he stayed there the whole war. And then he never came back. He never came back. Why? Because they wanted for income tax. Alright, so because after World War II we needed to pay for the war. He wasn't interested in helping pay for the war. So you can get a sense of maybe what was his beliefs, philosophy about the war. But we don't know that for sure either. The back part was added on. And this first part, right, David, is 1830. Yeah, 1830. We know for sure 1840 was used as a store. That's when the Strassburgers actually came, right? And that's probably when it was maybe made into residence and also business. The back was added on 1850?
47.
48, okay. And that was quickly built. You'll see how that was, it doesn't look as good as the front. And that was going to be for a store. And the store shelves and all that are still here, right? And then, even on the back of that had a cobbler's shop was there, And it made sense. Why? Because this is your one-shop only place if you're a traveler. Maybe you could stay overnight if you beg the owners to rent a room. But more likely though, if your horse needed shoeing or your was a blacksmith shop at the far end of the property. So there was a blacksmith shop. There was also a dry goods store in the back. There was also, if your boots or your shoes were in bad shape, you need a repair, you go to the cobbler, all right? And there were also other businesses around here.
Come over here.
So that's the synopsis. So David, you can add or correct what I said.
Well, I'll add to it, Dan. Thanks.
Good.
So I have my notes on my phone here. That's why I'm looking at my phone. I'm not texting. So, congratulations to you guys, to the Historical Society and everyone. Great job in getting this listed on the National Register. Thanks for hiring me to do it. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the confidence to do this. And the National Register is not something that's particularly easy to get on. Okay, it takes some time, and there's a lot of effort. You got to draw maps. There's a lot of things other than just researching the history, you know. So, and what it is, what the National Register is, it's the nation's list of the most important historic resources in the country. There's about 100,000, a little less than 100,000 properties on the National Register. Right? And it's honorary. The National Register is not does not interfere with private property rights, okay? You can do whatever you want to with the building, but if you do whatever you want to with the building, including, you know, alter it too much or demolish it, it's going to come off the National Register and you lose that honor. Also, it provides the opportunity, the potential to get grants because it's listed on the National Register, or even something that's eligible for the National Register. You can apply to the State Historic Preservation Office and possibly get grants for something that's listed on the National Register. For income-producing properties being listed on the National Register, you can maybe get a tax credit for rehabilitation of buildings. That wouldn't apply here because they're not a taxed organization, but income-producing buildings that are taxed, there is a tax incentive. 20% of the cost of rehabilitation. It's very substantial. A lot of buildings are redone this way, okay, and rehabilitated and restored. So to get listed on the National Register, the first thing you have to have, the most important thing, is historic integrity. That means basically that building has to look something like it looked when it was originally constructed. So you have historic integrity. You're established with this property because it looks the same. It's built out of brick.
And David, that's where Tammy came in starting, because you piggyback on her research when she was going to the Bucks County Historic Preservation Program.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So Tammy, I forgot to introduce her and thank her, and I shouldn't go on any further without saying that she was very much involved in the beginning. She pulled a lot of the research that I didn't have to do. And I just took the rest of it and compiled it and did a few other things to it. Wrote the nomination. So, thanks. So you have historic integrity here established because the buildings look pretty much like they did when they were first built, right? Then you have to have significance. And Van kind of spoke to this already. This property is significant primarily and under the National Register criteria C for architecture. Okay, that's how it got listed on the National Register. You have an excellent example here of a federal-style building. The addition on the back, which was the store. This building was about 1830. The store in the back was about 1847. And then you have the tenant house, the barn, the summer kitchen, lest we forget that, right? Summer kitchen. And you also have on the other side of the tenant house over there, you have ruins of a blacksmith shop, which Van already mentioned. So, also too, Reuben Strassburger, he was the owner of this property, Reuben Strassburger. He married Elizabeth Schwenk from Schwenksville, and in fact their store and their house was originally in Schwenksville, so she was no slouch either, right? Reuben was very important businessman in Schwenksville, had a store and so forth, a warehouse. He decided to move from Schwenksville after he married Elizabeth Schwenk moved here, built the store addition on the back, and all of the other buildings in this area. So he was not a farmer, but he bought a property that had a barn on it and a huge field in the back, so he hired a tenant. That's the house there. So the tenant farmer lived there, took care of the grounds. I'm sure Reuben collected, some income from that, some of the profits, right? And thus you have, the barn and the other things here. Now, one thing with the Strassburger family in general, and Van went into this too, is that even prior to Reuben and prior to Ralph Strassburger, the Strassburgers go back to the early colonial times in Philadelphia. They came over in 1750-ish into Philadelphia, into the port of Philadelphia, with the huge German migration that was coming at the time.
We got a thick book of their family genealogy that's in our back.
Yeah, that's one thing that was good about Ralph Strassburger, is he was really into his genealogy. So really, really good history of the family, and the book is literally about like this big. And he was also the first guy, Ralph was the first guy to realize the value of ship's manifests for genealogy research. He published a book of all the Germans that came over in the early 1700s based on these old ship manifests, which were still available. And that's the other thing too, and the other group that I want to thank that I didn't before, are these historical societies that maintain and keep all of this information in their archives. Extremely important. Without it, we couldn't do anything. There's a really good resource right near here, the Pennsylvania Room in the Indian Valley Public Library, which I used a lot to do my research here. And there's a whole lot of information now online that there didn't used to be. Reuben and Elizabeth, they lived here from about 1847 until about the late 1860s, 1868, 1869. And they decided to sell this property and move back to Schwenksville. Unfortunately, about 3 or 4 years later after that, in 1872, Reuben fell off of a train in Schwenksville and he was killed. All right? So that basically ended his life. So that's his story. Now I could, like Van said, I could go on and on about Ralph Strassburger forever and ever. And you could truly, it's a story that should be written, it should actually be made into a movie. He was such an amazing guy. But it goes along with his whole family history and that whole family trend. Ralph's father was Jacob Strassburger, and Jacob was born here. Okay, and Jacob became a very prominent lawyer in Norristown, and his son Ralph met and fell in love with a woman named May Bourne. And May Bourne, her father, was Frederick Bourne, and Frederick Bourne was the CEO of Singer Sewing Machine Company. When they got married, they were given a $4 million gift from the father. That equates, I figured it out, that equates to about getting an $11 million gift today. Okay, so that's a lot of money. So Ralph could do pretty much whatever he wanted to, and he did. He bought land like crazy. He literally bought all the land around here because he knew his relative, his grandfather, grew up here. So he bought all of this land around here. He bought all the land around Northern Farm. He did have some problems with the U.S. government, so he couldn't come back to the United States. He raised horses. He was a member and president of the Pennsylvania German Society.
And he also helped, I guess he really paid for all the publications. He's doing beautiful publications, high quality paper, binding, and all that. We have a couple here. We have also a small collection in our archives. And he paid, well, I gather he paid for those. It was total. So that's a great record for history.
Yeah. So, just today, take a little bit of time and walk around and, look at the barn. The barn actually also, too, I forgot, there's a carriage house addition that was on the side. That's now also in ruins. So he made a lot of improvements, Reuben did when he came here. They had money. The addition was a store and a cobbler shop, and he also had his brother living with him for a while, who's a tailor. So there may have been a tailor shop in there as well. blacksmith shop is a little bit later into the late 1800s, early 20th century. And I think you actually remember, Van, don't you,
Yes, I do
the
remember as a
blacksmith shop
kid
being there.
because I bus stopped for a while. Even though I lived over on Keystone Drive there, was the porch of the tenant house. So, and it was around 7 in the morning when the gauge was changing shifts. He had to come after walking a half-mile to get here. I don't think it lasted real long. I think actually even then in early 1960s, parents realized it wasn't very safe. And the bus stop actually went over there. But I do remember that building over there. I do. It was a garage at that time, not knowing that it had been a blacksmith shop.
So again, just take your time. Look at the details of the building. The brickwork, especially up along the cornice line, is pretty amazing. And look at the details in the woodwork inside. It's pretty amazing. The barn has got a lot of great features too. So take some time to walk around and look at that stuff. And thanks, Tammy, again, and thanks to the society, and congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thank you, David. And that's the end. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, where are most of the, you said almost 100,000 properties are on the national? Where are they mostly located? Up and down the East Coast?
No, they're all spread all over
National.
the country.
Coast to coast. Yeah.
Yeah, but where are most of them?
Oh, that's a good question.
You can go on the website, they'll tell you.
If you look at it in terms of population, where there's higher population, that would be where you have those. Yeah. So I know Montgomery County, I believe, has more properties listed on the national register than Bucks. But if you look out like per number of households or per number of buildings, Bucks County has more. And that's not necessarily that's the result of like the Heritage Conservancy and just a general interest in history. People like Jeff Marshall and Kathy Auerbach, who started the Bucks County Conservancy. Yeah. So that's why Bucks County has a pretty good concentration of properties listed on the national register.
Well, thank you very much. And if you want, Dave, are you staying around?
Yeah.
So if you're around, you're going to ask him questions inside. I have to go back and check for my responsibility.
Okay.
Not go into the house if somebody's taking care of that. I'm not sure that.
Thank you.
Oh, we're going to take a photograph in front of the market. I almost forgot.
Yeah.
That.